I almost walked away. I was standing outside, staring at this small black door glowing under a rainbow neon sign, pretending to scroll through my phone. My heart was pounding like I'd just run a mile. Even though I hadn't moved in minutes, it was my first queer bar, and I was completely alone. Everyone talks about how magical that first queer space feels. How it's supposed to be this moment of freedom, of finding your people, but no one talks about the fear. No one talks about how heavy the door feels before you open it. Because before you can step inside, you have to admit something. Not to anyone else, but to yourself. You belong there. And that was the hardest part. Before that night, I lived like two people. There was the version everyone saw. Polite, careful, always smiling. The one who laughed when people asked about boyfriends. The one who used the word friend for someone who was so much more. And then there was the version of me I didn't let out. The version that stayed up at 2 a.m., reading lesbian stories online, trying to find pieces of myself in other people's words. The version that listened to queer podcasts in secret, turning the volume down every time someone walked by. The version that whispered maybe in the dark. Maybe I'm gay. Maybe I'm bi. Maybe I'm something. Before quickly shutting it down. My coming out journey didn't start with pride flags or parades. It started with loneliness, because when you spend your whole life pretending to be someone else, even silence feels like rejection. That's why I decided to go. Not because I was brave, but because I was tired of being scared. I remember the walk there like it happened yesterday. The city was alive. Car horns, laughter, the smell of rain mixed with street food. My heart was pounding the entire way. This mix of adrenaline and dread, every block closer felt heavier. Like I was walking towards something I couldn't undo. I rehearsed lines in my head. What I'd order, how I'd act, how I'd look like I belonged. That was the goal, to belong. But when I finally found the place, this narrow door under the neon sign, I froze. I could hear the bass thumping inside, feel it through the ground. The sound of laughter spilled out every time someone opened the door, and there I was, standing on the edge of my own life, too afraid to step in. I told myself I'd just take a walk around the block, maybe come back later. But then, the door opened, and a group of people walked out, holding hands, laughing. One of them wearing a shirt that said, "Queer and proud." And I realized something. They weren't afraid, they weren't hiding, they were free. And I wanted that. So I took one deep breath, and I walked in. The first thing that hit me was sound, music, laughter. The kind of energy that hums under your skin. For a second, I just stood there, frozen. Like I'd accidentally stepped into someone else's dream. The place was packed. People were dancing, talking, hugging, and every single one of them looked real, not polished, not filtered, not pretending. It was chaos and warmth all at once. I walked to the bar, trying not to make eye contact, and ordered a drink. My voice shook a little when I said it. The bartender smiled. This easy, knowing smile. And said, "First time here?" I hesitated, then nodded. She grinned. "Welcome home." 2 words, but they hit harder than anything anyone had ever said to me. I turned around, holding my glass like it was an anchor, and tried to take it all in. A couple was slow dancing near the jukebox. Someone was laughing so hard they almost spilled their drink. And in the corner, a woman was reading a book, in a bar. And that's when the song changed. It was Girls Like Girls by Hayley Kiyoko. The same song I used to listen to with headphones on, volume turned all the way down, terrified someone would hear. And now it was blasting through the speakers, loud, joyful, unapologetic. I felt my throat tighten, because here it was. The sound of everything I'd been hiding, the sound of being seen, and for the first time, I didn't want to hide anymore. But then, something unexpected happened. A girl came up to me. She had this kind smile and said, "You look nervous. You okay?" I laughed. "Yeah, just first time," she nodded. "Mine was last year. I stood by that wall for 30 minutes before I moved." We both laughed. Then she said, "You'll get used to being seen. It stops feeling scary after a while." That sentence stayed with me, because I'd spent years thinking being seen was dangerous. That it meant judgment, rejection, exposure. But that night, being seen felt like breathing. I stayed for maybe 2 hours, long enough for the music to change twice, for my drink to go warm, for my heart to stop racing. And when I finally stepped outside again, the air felt different, the same city, the same streets, but I wasn't the same person walking through them. I didn't suddenly feel brave or proud, I just felt real. For so long, I thought my identity was something I had to announce, something I had to make other people understand. But that night taught me that being queer isn't about telling the world. It's about finally telling yourself. It's about giving yourself permission to exist. That's what people miss when they talk about coming out journeys. They think it's one big event, a single conversation, a dramatic reveal. But it's not. It's moments like this. Quiet, personal, life-altering moments, where you let truth replace fear. And suddenly, the world feels a little more yours. That night didn't erase my anxiety or make everything easy, but it gave me something I hadn't had before. A glimpse of what freedom could feel like. It was soft, uncomplicated, unapologetic, and that was enough. If you're listening to this right now, and you've ever stood outside a place like that, a queer bar, a pride event, even a mirror, and thought, "I don't belong there," I want you to know something. You do. You don't need to be out, you don't need to be confident. You don't need to have all the answers, you just need to take one step closer to yourself. That's what the first queer bar taught me. That courage doesn't always feel like power. Sometimes it feels like trembling hands and a shaky breath, but you take the step anyway. Because fear doesn't mean you're not ready. It just means you're standing at the edge of something real. And if you're on your coming out journey, please don't rush. You'll know when you're ready. Maybe it's when you stop whispering the truth in your head. Maybe it's when you finally walk through that door. Maybe it's when someone says, "Welcome home," and you believe them. That's the moment that changes everything. And when it happens, you'll realize you were never looking for a bar, or a label, or a community. You were looking for yourself. So if this story found you tonight, if you've been standing outside your own version of that door, this is your sign. You don't have to have anyone with you. You don't have to know what's waiting inside. You just have to walk in. And when you do, you'll find what I found. That belonging isn't something you earn, it's something you remember. If my story resonated with you, leave me a comment below. You don't need to explain, you can just write, "I'm ready," and I'll know what you mean. And if you want to be part of a space where queer voices, lesbian stories, and real coming out journeys are shared honestly, hit subscribe. Stay here, you're safe here, you belong here.